In this video, we're going to meet one of the most fascinating, complicated, and depending on how you look at it, either underrated or infamous figures in American history, Elbridge Gerry. Yes, that's Gary with a hard G, not Jerry like the cartoon mouse. His name has been immortalized in a political practice that every American, whether they realize it or not, is touched by: gerrymandering or gerrymandering. But who exactly was Elbridge Gerry or Elbridge Gerry? Why did his name become tied to one of the most enduring and controversial features of American politics? And how does knowing his story actually help us understand U.S. history more broadly? Elbridge Gerry was born in 1744 in Marblehead, Massachusetts, a bustling but rough and tumble fishing town. His father was a wealthy merchant, and young Elbridge grew up with both opportunity and tension. He inherited a comfortable life, but also the independence and suspicion of authority that defined New England maritime culture. He went to Harvard at a young age, just 14 years old, and by the 1760s, he was already getting involved in politics. That was a dangerous and exciting time. The colonies were simmering with resentment against Britain. Gerry soon fell under the influence of Samuel Adams, the fiery radical of Boston, and became a committed advocate for American independence. Gerry was both a gentleman and a Democrat, a man of privilege, who nonetheless believed deeply in the Revolution's ideals. This tension between elite background and democratic conviction would shape his entire career. During the Revolution, Gerry threw himself into the cause. He was a member of the Continental Congress and became known as an efficient, hard-working man, especially when it came to supplies and finance. He wasn't always on the winning side of debates, though. He had a knack for shifting positions and sometimes even contradicting himself. John Adams once said, "If every man here were a Gerry, the liberties of America would be safe against the gates of earth and hell." But he was also suspicious. He distrusted military power, distrusted standing armies, distrusted strong centralized authority. This suspicion sometimes put him at odds with George Washington and even Benjamin Franklin. He wanted liberty protected at all costs, but he wasn't always sure what that meant in practice. Gerry was an ardent patriot, but also indecisive. He fought for liberty, but he also feared concentrated power, even when that power was necessary. Fast forward to 1787, Gerry is at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Here his contradictions really shine. At first, he supports a strong national government, but as debates drag on, he grows alarmed at how much power the new Constitution seems to give. In the end, he refuses to sign the Constitution, warning that it would lead to a government of force and fraud. Later, when the Constitution was ratified anyway, he accepted the result, but this resistance earned him suspicion from Federalists, who saw him as unreliable. Yet he was elected to Congress, where he supported some Federalist measures, like Alexander Hamilton's financial plans, while also leaning toward Jeffersonian democracy. This back and forth made him a political enigma. Jefferson liked him, Adams liked him, but Hamilton distrusted him, and Washington thought he was vain and duplicitous. Gerry's career shows us the messy reality of early American politics. The Founding Fathers weren't united heroes. They were often divided, uncertain, and contradictory. One of Gerry's most dramatic moments came in 1797, when President John Adams sent him to France as part of a diplomatic mission. This became the infamous XYZ affair. French agents demanded bribes before negotiations, and Gerry, alone among the envoys, stayed behind in Paris, trying to smooth things over. This decision backfired. Federalists accused him of being duped by the French, and when he returned home, he was treated as a kind of a traitor. His family was harassed, his reputation blackened. Yet Jefferson's Democratic Republicans welcomed him more warmly. Gerry's role in the XYZ affair shows how fragile U.S. politics were in the 1790s. Foreign policy crises quickly became domestic political weapons. Now we come to the part of the story that left the biggest mark on history. In 1810, Elbridge Gerry became governor of Massachusetts. His first term was fairly moderate, but in his second, partisan tensions ran high. The Democratic Republicans, Gerry's party, wanted to secure their power against the rival Federalists. In 1812, they passed a redistricting bill that carved Massachusetts into oddly shaped electoral districts favoring their candidates. Here's the key point. Gerry himself was not the mastermind of this scheme. The real architects were party leaders in the Massachusetts legislature, professional politicians who saw redistricting as a tool to hold power. Gerry by nature wasn't a partisan trickster. In fact, he had often been criticized for being too gentlemanly in politics. But as governor, the bill reached his desk, and instead of vetoing it, he signed it. Some say he did so reluctantly, hoping to preserve unity in his party. Others argued that by this stage of his career, he had leaned fully into the Democratic-Republican politics and accepted the measure as necessary. One of the new districts in Essex County was so bizarrely shaped that it looked like a giant lizard. A Federalist newspaper cartoonist drew the creature, labeling it Gerrymander or gerrymander. And just like that, Gerry's name was forever tied to one of the most enduring features of American political life. The irony is striking. Gerry had spent decades worrying about how to protect liberty and limit power. Yet his legacy is bound to an act of manipulating democracy, and in the short term, it didn't even help him personally. In the very next election, he lost the governorship. Gerrymandering wasn't Gerry's idea, but his signature made it law. His name stuck because history often remembers not the intentions, but the outcomes. And in this case, a single cartoon turned his surname into political shorthand. Gerry lost re-election after the Gerrymander scandal, but he was soon chosen as vice president under James Madison during the War of 1812. He died in office in 1814. So why spend time learning about Elbridge Gerry? Well, his life actually opens up some of the deepest themes of U.S. history. The tension between liberty and power. Gerry constantly wrestled with how to protect freedom without giving too much authority to government. The role of suspicion in politics. From fear and tyranny in Marblehead to distrust in armies and banks, Gerry embodied the American tendency to mistrust concentrated power. The enduring problem of partisanship. The gerrymander wasn't the first partisan trick, and it wasn't the last. Understanding its origins helps us see that manipulating political boundaries is not a modern invention. It's as old as the Republic itself. Most importantly, Gerry's story shows us that history is full of contradictions. He was both a patriot and a partisan, both cautious and reckless, both principled and pragmatic. And maybe that's why his name stuck to something like gerrymandering, because it symbolizes the messiness of democracy itself. Democracy isn't clean or simple. It's shaped by power struggles, compromises, and sometimes very oddly drawn lines. So, the next time you hear the word gerrymandering, remember that it comes from a real person, a man who signed the Declaration of Independence, helped build the nation, stumbled along the way, and left behind a legacy, both larger and stranger than he could ever have imagined. I'm Dr. Lucas Wilder. This is History Gone Wilder. I'll see you next time.